My husband proposed on the top of a mountain too.
Is that right?
He did. Oh.
Did he ask again when he showed you the way back down?
Well, he was lucky he went first because I was breaking up with him.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Do y'all want to know where Kenny proposed? Oh, God, so unromantic.
Did we ask?
At a red light. It was here in Corpus. I'll never forget it. And the way he proposed, it was so funny, but it's okay. I love him anyway. It's okay, 40 years later.
Yes. Well, welcome to our Bible class again.
Yes.
You have probably noticed that Pastor Marcia isn't here. She is currently in Windsor Rehabilitation Center, and she can have visitors. She's in room 303 if you are in town and would like to visit her. Please keep her in your prayers. She's waiting to find out when surgery may or may not happen. So we're hoping that they are able to help her with her broken foot. And anyway, keep her in prayer, please. Are there any other people that need to be added to the prayer list? Okay, shall we all pray? Our Father, thank you for giving us this opportunity to meet together and study your word. Thank you for the wonderful examples that we're learning about from the book of Acts. Please be with the following people who really do need your assistance and support. Pastor Marcia is doing better, but certainly is not yet ambulatory. Please be with Jimmy Burek. We understand that his stay in the hospital has been complicated by COVID, and please help him to get strong and to return to his loving wife, Carolyn, who also had COVID, but it did not cause her to be hospitalized. Please be with David, the son-in-law of Cindy and Douglas. And please be with Wenceslao, who is suffering from his own illnesses, but also the memory of the loss of his wife. Please be with his entire family. Father, please be with the women's conference this weekend. Help them to gain strength and to gain a sense of community, and help the community in Gonzales where they are. Please be with all of us. Open our minds to new ideas. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay. I think we're in chapter 21, is that correct?
Yeah, we left, we were at the end of 20, and he had talked to the elders of Ephesus, and it was really a farewell kind of message and blessing that he gave all of them, and then they got on ship. That's the end of 20. So there's not just Paul, but a company, all of the workers with him.
Did you want to start the reading of chapter 21?
Yeah, all right. On to Jerusalem, this says. After we had torn ourselves away from them, we put out to sea and sailed straight to Kos. Well, it says we again, so apparently Luke is along with all of the bunch that are traveling. The next day we went to Rhodes, and from there to Patara. So they're here and they're heading, this is the orange one, we're heading to Jerusalem first, and then we're going to do another trip. But here's Rhodes, the island, and they're traveling. Okay, we found a ship crossing over to Phoenicia, went on board and set sail. After sighting Cyprus and passing to the south of it, they're here, there's Cyprus. we sailed on to Syria. We landed at Tyre, where our ship was to unload its cargo. Finding the disciples there, we stayed with them 7 days. Through the Spirit, they urged Paul not to go on to Jerusalem, but when our time was up, we left and continued on our way. All the disciples and their wives and children accompanied us out of the city, and there on the beach we knelt to pray. After saying goodbye to each other, we went aboard the ship, and they returned home. We continued our voyage from Tyre and landed at Ptolemy, where we greeted the brothers and stayed with them for a day. Leaving the next day, we reached Caesarea and stayed at the house of Philip the evangelist, one of the 7. He had 4 unmarried daughters who prophesied. After we had been there a number of days, a prophet named Agabus came down from Judea. Coming over to us, he took Paul's belt, tied his own hands and feet with it, and said, "The Holy Spirit says, in this way the Jews of Jerusalem will bind the owner of this belt and will hand him over to the Gentiles." When we heard this, we and the people there pleaded with Paul not to go up to Jerusalem. Then Paul answered, "Why are you weeping and breaking my heart? I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die in Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus." When he would not be dissuaded, we gave up and said, "The Lord's will be done." After this, we got ready and went up to Jerusalem. Some of the disciples from Caesarea accompanied us and brought us to the home of Mnason, where we were to stay. He was a man from Cyprus and one of the early disciples. So that was some traveling of a little ways to get to Jerusalem.
It's nice though that I guess that's the nice thing about Acts itself is just that it's the the travel logs and the interactions and it's the adventure, it's the whole adventure. It's not just in the letters, the epistles. Those are kind of direct comments to an audience, to the churches. But this is a lot more fun to read, and it's just more interesting because I could put myself in that, taking a boat here, traveling over there, and so it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I think a deep hardship. When I think of the benefits we have now, I'm thinking, this is difficult. This is
traveling.
difficult.
That's a difficult travel.
And going to somebody else's house, which, the word has told you, if you're not welcome, go ahead and leave or whatever. That's bold, just going into someone else's home.
Yeah.
But that's what they did.
Yeah.
And we didn't do that long ago either. I know my mother and father, when they were young and just got married, they both went to a little college, a normal college they called it, where they learned to be teachers. And they taught in one-room houses, one room up in the prairie. And when they used to travel, like traveling back to their hometown, which now it's a 6-hour drive, but they would, even in their car, they would drive a ways, because now we had babies. They had a baby now or two. And they would stay at people's houses. There weren't hotels and places to stay. And they would know somebody, and somehow or another they got names. And the Stelzer's farm is down this far, so we could, and that's how people used to travel around and get around from farm to farm. And, that was just a normal thing as well.
Well, nowadays, if we have somebody coming to speak at the church, we put them up at the hotel.
Yeah.
But I remember that when I was much younger, 50 years ago, somebody opened their home.
Yeah.
And that's really what they did here.
My brother said that he did a lot. People would always do that. It was just interesting. And when Pastor Lisa and Deacon Darcy came down few months ago when we had that service here. I kind of, was kind of their liaison, I guess. And I asked them, I have 2 nice rooms with queen-size beds in each one that are completely empty, nice rooms. So so I offered it to them, and I remember I kind of got a hesitation. And said, oh no, we already have reservations over here at the Stay Lodge or whatever the heck it was. It just almost seemed like it was a weird thing to do to offer.
It is nowadays.
When
It's not the
Cecilia
common thing.
coordinated Kids Against Hunger a couple of years back in the valley, we stayed with host families, and I remember thinking on the way down, okay, get used to this. This is a little bit different, but it was so much fun when you're open to learning about the couple you're staying with and hear their stories and stuff. It was a great learning experience. So I think the pastors would have had fun listening to you or whatever. I would have taken it up and saved $150 of hotel expense.
Yeah.
I'll give it.
That used to be the common thing.
Sure, you didn't have money to stay someplace and the budgets.
Well, there weren't hotels on every corner.
Yeah.
And you just didn't spend the money doing that. Somebody opened their home.
Yeah.
We all had a guest room.
The guest room.
That was part of, usually, or somebody moved out of their room and you made it into a guest room. If they're expecting somebody to come.
Or pastors would
We
live
always
with
did
families
that.
up in North Dakota, South Dakota, I'm sure too in that area.
I've done that. My wife and I have done it. We used to travel some church-related stuff.
Yeah.
And just different parts of the country. And we'd always stay. We never stayed with. We stayed with a couple that we'd never even met before.
Yeah.
It was just a good experience.
And you just learn so much, usually.
You get more acquainted.
I remember when college choirs toured.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so if they came, at that church, or even in this, when they came here to Corpus, if we were the host church, it was mostly our congregation that opened their homes to put up these kids, and you met them at the bus when they arrived, and
You adopted them, you took
take
them,
them to your house, and you plan to feed them.
What they eat and everything.
Yeah, and if you didn't have enough, we would get Cross Lutheran or the next, another church to help us out.
It worked.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
That's really
but
nice.
now, we're probably not going to do that. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I know when I would take even students into Mexico and stuff, we often would stay in somebody's home, but we slept on the floor, or we slept under their veranda type area.
Wherever they can put you up.
And they were, very gracious.
Right.
And it was a good experience. I think also, though, we've gotten sort of, in a sense, distanced because of the COVID issue. And people are less willing to just open their door.
Right.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I think the thing that struck me is because one of the trips I took into Guatemala really does stress the difficulty of just walking the trails. I mean, just walking. There, you can spend all day and go 40 miles, and that's in a car. You probably do better time on your feet walking from town to town, because it was torturous.
We stayed with people in Guatemala too. They would we knew I never had met.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
it was an ordeal. It was not something simple. Yet many of us don't even want to drive to the next town, or the next neighborhood, even. So
There's some things that happen here. This incident with the prophet Agabus seems to be not important, but knowing what the story's going to happen, and what else happens, his prophecy is an important thing to remember. What happens that the owner of this belt, so he's talking about Paul, so some things will happen. And if you haven't read the rest of the chapter or the rest of Acts you don't know, and it's kind of like, okay, when you read a mystery or something, you gotta pay attention to the clues that happen, kind of like dropped in there, okay? Oh, do you remember reading this? Yes.
Well, the thing that I find interesting is these individuals who are trying to dissuade him from going
Yeah,
are saying the Spirit has told us.
yeah,
But he's not listening to their version of the Spirit. I mean, it's the Spirit that's speaking to him that's...
yeah, the Spirit told him
Yeah.
that he needs to. But he's not afraid,
To
and, you know, and so that's his thought all the time. He's not afraid.
Yeah, this Agabus, he says he came down from Jerusalem, which really what that means is he came down from Judea.
Yeah.
But that means he was just in Jerusalem, so he knows the climate there. You know, he knows what's going on there and how dangerous it is.
Yeah. And geographically, it's down
Yeah,
because they're on the coast.
Jerusalem's up in there.
Right now, they're on the coast, so,
Yeah.
anyway. And they always find disciples, believers somewhere, everywhere they go now. So you have to know that the word has already spread, how much and how many believers.
What is this, about 60 years
Yeah.
after
it's in
the
there.
crucifixion?
So it's traveled somehow.
60 years after.
Yeah.
About 30 years after crucifixion.
I
He
was
was
gonna
crucified in
say-
about 30, right?
Yeah.
31, 32, 33 years.
Yeah,
So it's about 30 years.
But
It's
anyway.
like a generation.
Yeah,
But it's...
but
it
the
is
word is
before...
spreading.
It was Acts written before... Well, was it Acts described in time before the fall of Jerusalem?
Before some happens.
I think.
Because they weren't
Yeah.
dispersed yet. You know, that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the temple is still there.
Yeah, they're
Right.
still there
Right.
because we're going to talk about going in it.
Paul's to be arrested.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
You want me to read
You
it?
wanna
I'll start
the
from 17, I'll go down
17
to
to,
26.
yeah.
Paul visits James at Jerusalem. When we arrived at Jerusalem, the brothers welcomed us warmly. The next day Paul went with us to visit James, and all the elders were present. After greeting them, he related one by one the things that God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they heard it, they praised God. Then they said to him, "You see, brother, how many thousands of believers there are among the Jews, and they are all zealous for the law. They have been told about you, that you teach all the Jews living among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, and that you tell them not to circumcise their children or observe the customs. What then is to be done? They will certainly hear that you have come. So do what we tell you. We have 4 men who are under a vow. Join these men. Go through the rite of purification with them, and pay for the shaving of their heads. Thus all will know that there is nothing in what they have been told about you, but that you yourself observe and guard the law. But as for the Gentiles who have become believers, we have sent a letter with our judgment that they should abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and from what is strangled, and from fornication." Then Paul took the men, and the next day, having purified himself, he entered the temple with them, making public the completion of the days of purification when the sacrifice would be made for each of them. So he did what they asked him. He did go through the purification. Maybe that's why Agabus didn't want him to go, is because he knew that the Jews in Jerusalem thought that this guy was a blasphemer, that Paul was
Yeah.
blaspheming
They still
and
know.
teaching Jews, in ways other than their tradition.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And again, if they riled up the Jews, that would mean the police would get involved, who are the Romans, the Gentiles.
Well,
So,
Mhm.
you know.
We'll
So,
see.
yeah, it'll be the same situation. This
Yeah.
guy is causing a lot of trouble, so here, turn him over to the police.
Well, and I'm pretty sure they still harbored some, distrust simply because he
Yeah, they don't.
turned against what he had been doing.
They don't totally.
Right. Yeah.
So.
He used to be
He used to be their
Bad
chief
guy. Yeah.
chief guy to go get those Christians.
Yeah. Ed, you wanna read? 27?
Paul arrested. When the 7 days were nearly over, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul at the temple. They stirred up the whole crowd and seized him, shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help us. This is a man who teaches everyone, everywhere, against our people and our law and this place. Besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They had previously seen Trophimus and Ephesian in the city with Paul and assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. The whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions, seizing Paul. They dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. While they were trying to kill him, news reached the commander of the Roman troops that the whole city of Jerusalem was in an uproar. He at once took some officers and soldiers and ran down to the crowd. When the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. The commander came up and arrested him and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains. Then he asked who he was and what he had done. Some of the crowd shouted one thing and some another. And since the commander could not get at the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken into the barracks. When Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great he had to be carried by the soldiers. The crowd that followed kept shouting, "Get rid of him."
Okay. Oh,
Just wanted to lead him.
okay, rumors and
Yes.
whatever. So now we've got another section here. Why don't you go ahead and read?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, the next is Paul speaks to the crowd. As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." After receiving the commander's permissions, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. When they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, "Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense." So we keep going.
Sure.
When they heard him speak to them in how do you say that? Aramaic. Aramaic, they became very quiet. And Paul said, "I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city. I studied under Gamaliel and was thoroughly trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison. As the high priest and all the council can themselves testify, I even obtained letters from them to their associates in Damascus, and went there to bring the people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished. About noon, as I came near Damascus, suddenly a bright light from heaven flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice say to me, 'Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?' 'Who are you, Lord?' I asked. 'I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting,' he replied. My companions saw the light, but they did not understand the voice of him who was speaking to me. 'What shall I do, Lord?' I asked. 'Get up,' the Lord said, 'and go into Damascus. There you'll be told all that you have been assigned to do.' My companions led me by the hand into Damascus, because the brilliance of the light had blinded me. A man called Ananias came to see me. He was a devout observer of the law and highly respected by all the Jews living there. He stood beside me and said, 'Brother Saul, receive your sight.' And at that very moment I was able to see him. Then he said, 'The God of our ancestors had chosen you to know his will and to see you, the righteous one, and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now what are you waiting for? Get up, be baptized, and wash your sins away calling on his name. When I returned to Jerusalem and was praying at the temple, I fell into a trance and saw the Lord speaking to me. Quick, he said, leave Jerusalem immediately because the people here will not accept your testimony about me. Lord, I replied, these people know that I went from one synagogue to another to imprison and beat those who believe in you. And when the blood of your martyr Stephen was shed, I stood there giving my approval and guarding the clothes of those who were killing them. Then the Lord said to me, go, I will send you far away to the Gentiles.
Yes. So, this last phrase is what turns the people against him again, you know, because...
Oh, yeah.
Because where was he going? To those people out there. Those people.
Yeah.
So,
The Gentiles.
yeah.
Do you want to continue?
Yes. This is Paul and the Roman tribune. Up to this point, they listened to him, but then they shouted, away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live. And while they were shouting, throwing off their cloaks and tossing dust into the air, the tribune directed that he was to be brought into the barracks and ordered him to be examined by flogging, to find out the reason for this outcry against him. But when they had tied him up with thongs, Paul said to the centurion who was standing by, is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who is uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went to the tribune and said to him, what are you about to do? This man is a Roman citizen. The tribune came and asked Paul, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? And Paul said yes. The tribune answered, it cost me a large sum of money to get my citizenship. Paul said, but I was born a citizen. Immediately those who were about to examine him drew back from him, and the tribune also was afraid, for he realized that Paul was a Roman citizen and that he had bound him. Wow. Okay. So.
We don't really know anything about Paul's parents or who they were, do we?
Not that I remember ever reading. He just tells everybody that he's...
I wonder how do they verify that? I wonder.
Oh, there was probably something that they had to do.
They could keep him in jail and send off something to the magistrate or something and find a document, I suppose, maybe. But anyways, yeah, it's interesting.
Well, witnesses? It could have been.
Yeah.
His name may have told him. If he gave his full name, maybe he would have told him. Rome allowed a lot of people to buy citizenship, and a lot of former slaves became Roman citizens. So maybe his family had been slaves or had done some special service for. I don't know how you get to be a Jew and then a Roman citizen at the same time. But
I think the Romans were pretty open to. They didn't really care who you were. Where you came
there's
from.
somewhere I'm remembering some facts that I've learned in some study. Like, one of his parents was a Jew and the other was not. And see, they don't live in Jerusalem. He's from Tarsus.
Yeah.
Up here. You know. Where is it? He's from up here. He's not from down here. But he was in Jerusalem. He
says he was brought up in Jerusalem.
Yeah, he was brought up there, but his home, he claims his home to be Tarsus. And he's a tent maker, and you know, other things about him. But there was something I remember about maybe that of his parentage. One of them being a Jew, which makes him Jewish, but Roman at the same time.
it's quite possible.
Because maybe his other parent was
a Roman.
a Roman. Who knows?
There was a story just yesterday about in Israel they're trying to determine who's Jewish. Jewish is passed on through the mother.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of the people who are claiming to be Jews their mother's not Jewish, so, you know, they're having some issues there.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, because it's not enough to have had one parent. It should be the mother at least. So maybe his mother was Jewish and his father
Yeah,
was
maybe so.
a Roman
I
citizen.
don't remember exactly, that was a long time ago, but just something's, we'll
Yeah.
have to Google
I think
it.
it's
So research.
Yeah, I think it was in Acts that we found that out, the parentage of this Paul, I think, I
It could
remember,
be.
but I don't know where.
Oh, okay.
Romans, those who are
learned a
given
lot of
citizenship because of
disciples.
some service to Rome, who were Roman citizens who purchased, they were protected. And it doesn't say anything.
We learned a lot of stuff in Disciple because we had a video and they present, you know, the presenters gave us a lot of information too, so.
So he defended himself, and it didn't get him very far.
There was a note in.
Well, it got the,
Well, it got his attention for sure. He
Yeah.
didn't get beaten anymore.
yeah,
Mhm.
they got to stop some of what they were doing, and whoever was accusing him, that's,
So now he's
Backed
before the
off.
council.
yeah. Well, not yet. He's coming, yeah, the next section, before the,
Dulce, you want to start at 30?
yeah.
30?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Chapter 22, verse 30.
22.
Chapter 22, verse 30.
Verse 30. The Sandaria divided? Sandering. Okay. The next day, because he wanted to know for certain why he was accused by the Jews, he released him from his bonds and commanded the chief priest and all the council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. Then Paul, looking earnestly at the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in a good conscience before God until this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded those who stood by him to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. For you said to judge me according to the law, and do you command me to struck contrary to the law? And those who stood by said, Do you revile God's high priest? Then Paul said, I did not know, brethren, that he was their high priest, for it is written, You shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. But when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Concerning the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am being judged. And when he had said this, a dissension arose between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, and no angel or spirit, but the Pharisees confess both. Then there arose a loud outcry, and the scribes of the Pharisees' party arose and protested, saying, We find no evil in this man, but if a spirit of an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against God. Now, when there arose a great dissension, the commander, fearing lest Paul might be pulled to pieces by them, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him by force from among them and bring him into the barracks. The plot against Paul. But the following night the Lord stood by him and said, Be of God cheer, Paul, for as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must also bear witness at Rome. And when it was day, some of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. Now there were more than 40 who had formed this conspiracy. They came to the chief priests and elders and said, "We have bound ourselves under a great oath that we will eat nothing until we have killed Paul. Now you therefore, together with the council, suggest to the commander that he be brought down to you tomorrow, as though you were going to make further inquiries concerning him. But we are ready to kill him before he comes near." So when Paul's sister's son heard in their ambush, he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Take this young man to the commander, for he has something to tell him." So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to say to you." Then the commander took him by the hand, went aside, and asked privately, "What is it that you have to tell me?" And he said, "The Jews are agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. But do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait for him, men who have bound themselves by an oath that they will neither eat or drink until have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for the promise from you." So the commander let the young man depart and commanded him, "Tell no one that you have revealed these things to me." Keep going.
Why don't we talk about... Yeah. Well, first off, it's important, we had at least 3 different versions of the Bible, or translations of the Bible.
this is
Yes. In case you're reading, I think this is the
Lutheran, yeah.
This is the Lutheran Study Bible,
You're
but
looking
it's
at
Revised
Lutheran.
Standard.
I look at the NIV, which is some different.
A little bit different, and this is
Everybody's
the
got
King
a
James,
different
right?
version.
Okay. I think it's interesting, I was just thinking how thin those guys must have gotten, the ones who promised never to eat or sleep.
Yeah.
They didn't live very long, I don't think, because we know what happened with Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anything else you saw that was interesting?
I think this is a good example of where through history Christian people could have turned to this, something like this, or this is an example of trying to besmirch Jews. Mm-hmm. You know, this is a good example of where it sounds like Jews are the enemies of Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then this throughout many centuries and centuries, people can use this. You know that, and you see that. You know, that's why to this day there's a lot of people that there are people that are anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish or anti-Jews, and that's very historical. That goes way back. You know, it's just to read this again, and like we've said this before, is that as God gives us this word and these stories and these these stories of witness of what happened. Me as a Christian, I always read this type of thing, not as, oh, look what those Jews did to the Christians. It's rather, this is me. You know, I put yourself in the position of the Jews, put yourself in the position of Paul and the Christians, and these are examples of things that happen in my lifetime, here and now. There are people there's always sides, there's always,
Read the paper.
yeah, you can read the paper. There's always going to be that kind of stuff.
Contradiction.
And this is what Jesus teaches us through through these stories, is that what does he teach us to that person that we hate?
Yeah.
We love them. We understand them. We put down our anger, and and because look how big this is. This is a huge difference. These aren't just two people fighting over the last hot dog.
This is a big deal.
This isn't just somebody who ran into your car. you know, this is a huge political, you know, this is Rome against the, you know, Judea and Judaism, which has been around for thousands of, it's been around this long, you know. So this isn't just a simple discussion about some people that are not getting up. These are very ingrained, deep political, traditional, cultural differences, and these people hate each other, you know. So how do you get past that? Well, we ask that question of ourselves today. How do you get past that? Pick up a newspaper. There's two sides that just hate, and there are times when they seem like there's times when they get more and more polarized, and it's ugly, and it's, you almost don't want to turn the TV on when the little kids are around. And that's the news, for Pete's sake.
I don't want to listen to it.
And
You know,
so,
much less kids.
so that's what I'm learning here. It's not that, look what those Jews really were bad. They really hated Christ. They killed him, and to go off on some tangent like that. So the people who have those feelings, even they're just completely wrong. They're totally misguided, and they completely missed the message that God has given us through His Word, through these witnesses.
Well, I think the big message is through all these arguments and bigger than that, but all of this, Christianity survived.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still here.
Yes.
It's spreading in spite of us.
Yeah.
You know, it's going. And it did then already. It had spread. Look at all these people that they stayed with on their journeys. There already were believers somewhere.
Just about everywhere.
Before they got there.
And you know, that's absolutely right. It's spreading then, and it's still spreading now. But if you were to go through and figure out what's the common denominator, how come, you know, why does it? And it just comes down to one word, and God and Jesus spoke about it all the time. It's love. That's the only way it'll spread. That's the only way Christianity will ever spread, is if it's spread with love. You can't force anybody. You can't rap somebody on the knuckles until you read their Bible.
You can't beat them like you're going to investigate him by beating him first.
You could make this country, you know, put you know, the strongest Christian in the world and make him the president of this country, and make this country a Christian country. That's not going to spread Christianity. As a matter of fact, that'll probably work against it, because now you're making it something political. It's not a political thing. It's love between your neighbor. We talk about neighbors being, oh, they're all over the world and everything, but if you think about, do that simple thing is, you know, I live in a house, and I have a neighbor here and I have a neighbor here. What if I just spent my life loving God and just really paying attention to these people here, getting to know them, making sure, and then what if that person did the same on that side, and me, and what if that's the only way it spreads. That's how Christianity spreads. It seems, because other people will see, that's a nice idea. I like the way you do that. Look, that's a nice way of living. You know, your goat, you know, there are goats. A wolf came and ate 3 of their goats. Now they got no milk for their babies. You have a goat. Give them some milk. In my mind, nothing will delight God more than something simple as that. As opposed to conquering a nation in the name of God. That's not. He wants you to do this, and He wants everybody to do that. So it spreads bit by bit. And you see that here. You travel, and he found a believer over here, and they're living that believer's life. He goes, and there's some people living over here, and that just spreads. That becomes a community. That becomes a way of life. You know, when you have a lot of people that are living that way, that becomes kind of a cultural way of living. We started our country like that. You know, people say, oh, it was started under Christianity. No, it was started by a lot of people who came here who lived that way, who were Christians. I don't want a Christian nation. I would love a nation full of Christians, though.
And it came from a lot of people that came here.
And yet, the people coming here now, we want to turn them away. Hello, how did our nation start?
Oh,
you know? I mean, there is a fight there too. You know? And the racism, the white supremacy stuff going on right now, it's crazy.
I don't see white supremacy going on.
Oh,
that I don't see. I think that's a lot of hype that's going on.
You think that's hype?
No.
Yeah, really? Where does that happen? Where does that happen?
There.
Where does it happen?
It's there.
Where does it happen? I've never seen an instance of it.
Oh.
Well,
I can tell you
didn't it?
statistically it's going on.
Yeah.
I've never seen
Yeah.
an instance of it.
It's there, Lee. It's there.
All I see is, I used to go to
You mean the
Kings.
neo-Nazis?
Well, there are some of those, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are flag-carrying communists as well, and anarchists as well.
Yeah.
Look what they did to our country a couple of years ago.
I grew
For a
up
whole
in a
summer long, they did
school
that.
that most of my classmates
I didn't see white
were
supremacists doing that
Jewish.
for all summer long throughout our country.
You know, Lee, I grew up in a school that most of the classmates were Jewish. And some were Protestants. My school was completely, very, and I really thank God for that because it made me open-minded. I see some of my cousins that went only Catholic school and they are so rigid that I can't even understand why they're so rigid, and because thank God I had a chance to be friends with Jewish girls.
Yeah.
And what problems they had. I had girls, they were, like you said, your daughter's getting married, their fathers would make arrangements who do they get, they were getting married.
Yeah,
And I thought,
their
that was
culture.
horrible. But what could I do? I just could listen to them and
Yeah.
that's it.
Love them.
It's not,
Back
Well-
to the,
We can move on.
Well, I was going to say that the assumption that there isn't any politics involved is
Yeah.
also not true, because everything is political.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus was being political because he was challenging the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
It was interpreted as being political.
yeah.
No, he was in fact
Everything you
political
do.
because
Yeah,
of
it
that.
really is.
I don't
It's
agree
not
with that.
politics, but you're being, in a sense, political.
No.
It can be called political.
Well,
It's not that you were
yeah. Since you cited, how
Not
many people
Democratic.
came here?
a Republican, but
We're talking little d. We're
I'm not,
talking about.
I'm not registered or anything.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
I mean,
doesn't matter.
Independent.
I mean,
That's what they're interpreting.
Well, the thing when you look at American history, we were settled by people who wanted religious freedom, who
Yes.
immediately said nobody else can have it.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's an
we
interest-
want it, but we're not giving it to you.
You know what's interesting, and I brought this up to the Synod, and they completely just gaffed me off when I represented a church up there. If you look on the Synod bylaws or whatever, they've renamed one of their ministries the Holy Experiment Ministry. It used to be the mission. Well, now it's the Holy Experiment. So they've used that term. We were voting on these changes. And I said, well, no. I was the only one who voted no. And I said, I'd like to explain why. Because in my mind, somebody just didn't really read the term or doesn't know the history of the term. And where that term came from was in Pennsylvania. With William Penn, of course, there was all these Quakers, and they set up this grand idea. That colony, Penn, Pennsylvania now, Penn, and they set it up. And they call it the Holy Experiment. That's where that term comes from. Google it up. So they have their bylaws. How are we going to run this freedom, true freedom of religion? They let in any. It doesn't matter. There was Jews, Muslims. There was even some Catholics got in. We let in. Believe it or not. And so it was really. This is really true. But when you got down to the when you read kind of like the details, boy, they're welcome to live there and worship and work and everything. But they can't have a church. They can do it in their own house. They couldn't sit on council. You had to be a Protestant, and a certain kind of Protestant. You couldn't sit on a council. You couldn't hold a job.
Politics was immediately there.
Yeah. So what it came down to was like, yeah, they could live there and work there and be there, and even worship there, but they had to do it under the as a subordinate, as an identified subordinate to the other people. So and that was the Holy Experiment. So now I hear ELCA wanting to turn their missionary, and it is. You can look on it now. They call it the Holy Experiment, and I tried to explain that to them, but I don't know.
When was this, Lee, that
A
you?
couple years ago, when I was the,
And it's called the Holy
yeah,
Experiment?
look at it. They changed the name to the Holy
I don't
Experiment.
doubt it.
Yeah, oh yeah, officially it changed.
Previously,
Okay.
it was what?
It was just called something about
Mission.
mission ministry or outreach ministry or something like this, and now they called it the Holy Experiment Team, I think it
The
is.
term came from.
Yeah, that's where the term came from. Yeah, so nobody
There's
like,
some
go
other
look at us,
things.
it's
Yeah.
a term, you know.
Yeah.
You gotta vet things, that's what they mean about
But see-
vetting things. You gotta, before you know, who is this person before you vote him in office? Do a little
But
research
see,
on the person.
But see, when you brought it up, it was only you, and you said they kind of said, be quietly or whatever. You have to have a following. When you
Yeah.
bring something
Oh,
like
yes,
that
you
to the
can't-
table, you have, and that, again, that's political. It's
It is.
political.
Well, that's why, you
And
know-
is it right? No.
No.
But
That's
if
what-
you
yeah.
had 5 or 6, 10 people right by you that were in the same thought process, it would have been extremely helpful.
That's how Rome
You know.
became as successful as it is, mob rules.
Yeah.
It was the mob rules.
Here they
Whoever's got
had
the biggest
40
army
people,
and the most people.
40
yeah.
people that were gonna go hungry here and starve until, you know.
Yeah, well, and they probably did, if they
Yeah.
truly followed their rules. I found it fascinating that Paul had a sister.
I didn't pick up on that, is that right?
Well, it says, well,
It says, now the son of Paul's sister
yes.
Hmm.
heard about the ambush, which was interesting, so it must have been broad enough for him to have heard about it.
Yes, in verse 16,
Yeah.
when,
And I'm
yeah,
thinking,
we haven't heard about,
I think that's the only time we hear about his sister.
yeah,
About any family member.
any
other than-
family, okay. Well, I
And they don't
found
give her
where
a
I
name. They
learned
don't
about
give her a
parentage
name.
No.
is in the disciple book. So if we get to this purple book later, talking about, we're going to hear about Paul's early life, and
Oh,
we'll learn
okay.
about it then.
And then we learned about he has a sister. And,
Well,
at least one
it
nephew.
doesn't say much about that, but it does say about his parents. Paul was born in Tarsus of devout Jewish parents who were Roman citizens. They were Jews of the diaspora, part of the several million Greek-speaking Jews scattered in major cities all around the Mediterranean.
Well,
So he was already from the out.
he was from the outcast, probably since, Syria to Damascus, probably from that time period.
Yeah.
They probably never went back to Jerusalem.
Yeah,
One
so
can even.
there we are.
He also
Anyway,
said, he also said
so if
something.
we do the purple book, you're gonna.
He also
learn
said
about
something
it.
here where he says, "I'm a Jew. I'm a Pharisee. I'm a son of Pharisees."
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking, well, his mother couldn't have been a Pharisee, so I don't know if that
Well,
means
then-
means maybe her father.
It says Jewish parents, both of them
Both of them,
were Jewish, but they were Roman citizens because they lived
or they purchased it, or somehow or
back
another they
then.
got.
Yeah, somehow.
They were citizens before he was born.
Greek-speaking Jews,
Yeah.
so they were not from the Jerusalem Jews,
Yeah.
which is,
Another outsider they could have been. Yeah.
we got those too.
But he had credentials. He was a credentialed Jew.
He was
Well, and I think he was seen as a traitor because he had
Yeah, he should
Yeah.
know better. Yeah.
There you
switched
go.
teams.
And it kind of goes back to what Christ says too. Anybody who knows better and trips, you teach somebody wrong, knowing you're wrong. Well, put a drain millstone around their neck.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of understand. If you know better and you're teaching something that you know is wrong, then you're the worst of the worst.
Then you are.
So that must be how they saw Paul.
Well, just to go back to the sermon on Sunday, I think this is why Jesus said he wanted to have shrewd Christians. Because
He wanted to
Paul,
have shrewd.
shrewd Christians.
Shrewd.
Remember from the Gospel Sunday?
Yeah.
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 Well, anyway, you were, unless you watched it on
I did not.
Facebook. Anyway, well, I'm trying to figure out what would he want them to be shrewd about. He didn't want them to actually, follow
Not
the
shrewd.
business
Yeah.
methods or the political part of the Jewish leadership or any of that. What he wanted them to do was first go, tell, and then he wanted them to figure out, be smart enough to not walk right into all those traps,
Yeah.
and then to find a way out. And Paul was very good at this. this, because,
Oh,
I mean, when does he bring up the fact that he's a Roman? Certainly he wouldn't do that in the temple.
Not until
Because that's not gonna do
not until they
anything for
smacked him in the mouth. They put him
Yeah.
in chains, brought him
well,
to
they're
the...
gonna beat him and he
Yeah.
says,
Oh, okay.
Well,
you can't do that.
he
I'm
was,
a
he
Roman
was going,
citizen."
he was accepting the beating from the Jews.
Yeah, from the
Well,
Jews,
I'm
but
sure
not
he's
from the
not happy
Romans.
about it, but.
Yeah.
But not from the Romans.
Well, being a Roman wouldn't impress the Jews anyways. Being
Well,
Jewish.
it would have impressed him.
Well,
but
maybe
the
so,
wrong
yeah,
way.
for striking our citizens.
Well, I
yeah,
thought
you're right,
another
you're right.
thing that he did was to bring up that he is a Pharisee because of his hope of the resurrection of the dead, and immediately he knows
He
these-
split half the crew.
Yeah, he split the guys who were accusing him, because here's the Pharisees who believe it, and the Sadducees who don't, and they've been arguing about it for centuries, or for years, and,
Yeah.
So
you know,
Yeah.
that's the basic, you know, it's a difference between
Yeah.
Baptists and,
Yep.
you know, well, Pentecostals maybe, or Pentecostals and the Catholics, you know, get some too extreme
Yeah.
Yes.
Viewpoint.
believers,
It's like
and,
tribalism.
yeah, and, I mean, basically, they're the same, they're Christians, but they're not getting there on the
They're
same
not
road.
gonna- yeah.
So,
There you go.
know,
Yeah.
it
And
just
that's
isn't
like
gonna
you
happen.
said, that's not loving your neighbor. And if you love your
Well,
neighbor,
that's
the human-
how
that's
much
that human-
better would
No,
it be?
but
Brokenness.
sure,
Well,
How
if
much
you love
better
your
would
neighbor,
it
Yeah.
if you love your neighbor, you have to at least recognize them and
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
One of my favorite stories that I tell in my sociology class is of a leader of a gang. And, you know, he's a leader of a gang, not necessarily a good guy, but he has to go across the opposing gang's territory. Now, he hopes he can sneak through, but he gets caught. Okay? So, the gang members of the opposing group surround him, and he knows he's going to get a beat down at best, you know, maybe die. And so what does he do? He shrewdly said, he basically assaults the leader of that gang and forces him to do a one-on-one beatdown versus the entire group beatdown. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a good thing, but if you're going to be beaten by 50 people and possibly die, wouldn't you rather just have one person beating you up?
yeah, you
That
got a
is
better
being
chance
shrewd.
of winning.
That's
That is
being shrewd.
Sure, it is.
Yeah. And I think that's what he's saying, and Jesus is saying,
Survival.
you know, think about this, you know?
It's survival.
You just don't run out there and say, hey, I'm a Christian, you want to shoot me?
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
And then, yeah.
Right.
So-
And we should be shrewd in how we deal with the politics today, how we live today.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing
Yes.
today, you know?
Yes.
And think about, you know, love God first, love your neighbor, and then think about who you're going to vote for. You know, that's, you always put things in, everything goes after that.
Well,
Yeah.
You know, you love God first. What does He want? What does God want from us? What does Jesus speak? What does He say to us? And then we live our life, and we you know, we take care of the people, and we love those around us, and even if they don't like us. But then now, if you're going to start, you know, then look around everything else around you.
Right.
You know? If you say God doesn't want me to do this, but damn it, I can't vote. I'm going to vote this way anyways. Well, then you're probably not doing yourself a favor. There's, you know, it has nothing to do with me or the rest of the
No.
people out there. But you know, if you're, you know, but with that, I'm not saying don't be, you know, just like you said, be shrewd about it. Think about it. Think about what you're going to be doing.
Right.
And how is it really going to affect people? Everybody, you know, how is it going to affect people? It's really great, you know, it sounds like it's so thoughtful and so nice, and it seems like such a sweet thing. But what's the effect of that, you know?
Yeah.
How's it really gonna?
I think it's lack of civics, because also people say things that are inappropriate or offensive. You have to start thinking, I'm not going to say things to offend you, just to hurt you.
No.
Yeah.
That's
not
it.
loving your neighbor.
They used to have
Loving your
civics.
neighbor is you love that person. I mean, if somebody I don't
Respect.
give a darn about thinks something different than I do, I'm not even going to enter in a conversation. What's the point, you know? But if it's somebody that I know, I love, and in my mind, they're of an idea or of an opinion that I find, you know, I have a problem with personally. Again, it goes against mine. well, I might have a conversation with that person. And if I really love that person, I might really debate with that person.
Yeah.
You know, if I really love them, I might argue because I care about what they think about. And now am I arguing because I want to win? Because this is a chess game that I want to win? Or is it because I'm thinking this person needs to understand this, for them? And that,
Well,
whether I'm right or wrong, I could be wrong, but I'm just saying in that dynamic, that are you fighting just to win, or are you arguing to because you care about what this person thinks?
I do think we need to remember what Jesus told his disciples as he sent them out. He says, and if they won't listen to you, you shake the dust off your feet and go leave.
Leave it.
Because
just leave it.
they're not open to
Right.
you. Right. And there are many people, including people in your own family, who are not open to it.
Right.
Can somebody
Good
reach
point.
them? Maybe, but it won't be.
It won't
necessarily
be me,
you.
so we aren't going to talk about it.
Yeah.
There are other things to deal with and talk about and visit with, but don't just leave that topic
But what you can
alone.
do is live your life, be an example.
Well,
'Cause a lot of the times, if if the person completely doesn't agree with you, but okay, but you can. If this person is around you or they see you, they'll see what you do. That'll come
Well,
through.
it
God will
is,
work
yeah.
on their heart when
Yeah.
they see an example of this is what if you live the way you speak, if you live the way
well,
that
you do, but
You can't make robots out of people.
No.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you don't
We all
want
come
it
with
to
a
be.
very soul and spirit that God gave us.
Mhm.
That's it.
We don't want to all be alike,
No,
and we certainly
God doesn't want
aren't,
us to be
but
robots.
we get along, so it's
Yeah.
fine. Well, another thing to remember out of this is that last verse. The Lord tells Paul to take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, you must also testify in Rome. So he
Yes.
knows
Yes.
that he's going to get there,
Mhm.
Yes.
and that he has to get there because that's
He
what
will.
God wants him to
That
do.
was a mission statement.
Yeah, it really was. So,
Well, and I think that actually is probably a pretty good place to stop because he
Yeah.
does get sent to
Well-
then the governor.
then we talked, we talked about the plot.
Yes.
There's we could finish 23.
Do you want me to
And-
read on?
Yeah.
Paul
the-
transferred to
yeah, and
Caesarea.
be done with it
Be
here.
done with it, okay. Verse 23. Then he called 2 of his centurions and ordered them, get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Very specific. Provide horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix. He wrote a letter as follows: Claudius Lysias, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by the Jews and they were about to kill him, but I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. So the soldiers carrying out their orders took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as Antipatris. The next day they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks. When the cavalry arrived at Caesarea, they delivered the letter to the governor and handed Paul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from. Learning that he was from Cilicia, he said, I will hear your case. When your accusers get here, then he ordered, that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's palace.
Okay. So,
So he's going to hear both sides, supposedly.
yeah, so the plot didn't happen. He
Yeah,
took him off in the night with
Mhm.
all the army stuff.
Saved it.
Got him to back to Caesarea,
uh-huh.
out of Jerusalem, so.
Well, I love how the letter was written. He doesn't say,
Mhm.
and we were beating him to get information.
Yeah,
and he didn't admit that they didn't know he was there, you know. We screwed up, man.
We
Yeah.
invited him into the house for a conversation.
And we're passing the problem on to you. You take
Yeah,
Right.
care of
very
it.
much, so.
You take care of it.
Yes.
So next time, 24, trial before Felix, so mark your,
Isn't it a cat? Felix the cat?
Well,
yeah, something
There
like
You know
was
that
that.
old cartoon, Felix the cat?
Oh, yeah.
So that's
That's what I always think about.
the first
I see that.
some more things that happened to him, but anyway, we can go on from there next time and
Yes.
hopefully get him to Rome.
get him to Rome.
Get him to Rome.
He's got work to
Be
do.
done
He's
with
got
it,
lots
and
of
then
work to
we
do.
see what happens.
Okay.
Shall we pray?
Sure.
Thank you, Father, for giving us this time together. Please help us to understand not only what Paul went through, but what Christians today will go through, and how we can be shrewd for you, and how we can do what you have asked us to do. Please be with all who are sick, and bring them back to the fold soon. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Dulce, did you sign the card?
I'm guessing Marcia's watching.
I don't know,
She has
she
her
only,
phone?
only has her phone, and
Yeah.
I don't think she remembered her password.
No, probably not.
You guys,
I would like to have the flowers changed to the fall
Okay.
flowers and get the yellow ones off. So if somebody has a key and can
Well, if somebody
retrieve
we can
those
get
out
the
of the
keys,
side
so,
room.
yeah. We
I
can
got
do
a
that.
plug
Yeah.
that's bugging me. They're about to go to my house.
Oh, okay.
They're putting, I have a new countertop.
So anyway.
What is Haley having problems with?
No,
Well,
no,
she's
Being
in
in
school.
school.
You know, she's
Just
getting used to it. It's
yeah.
been,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's
You know,
rough.
they've been there a month now, or 6 weeks. And,
Well, and she came
Yeah.
back. She came back for,
Putting that on
oh, did you?
in my bathroom.
she's been back once.
Oh, okay.
On
But
granite-
anyway.
Granite.
Yeah, that's,
Not a big bathroom. Put that on my,
yeah.
Oh,
that's the granite.
yeah.
It's not a very big bathroom.
That's pretty.
guys,
Let me go get the keys.
I had turned my phone off, I thought. I apologize, it rang. But I didn't have to answer the call anyway, but I thought I had shut the volume down, and lo and behold, it wasn't shut off.
Yeah.
Here's-
Sorry about
Fortunately, it
that.
wasn't too weird.
Oh, it was
Big bathroom.
loud. I always have my phone on loud so I can hear
Go on,
it.
it'll go on top of that. That's the old one.
Okay.
I'm surprised. I
Maybe
didn't-
Sissy and I can stop by and see Pastor Marcia on the way out on Friday. I'll ask
I should do
Sissy.
something like
I
that
just
so I
sent her
can
a
look.
text this morning about
I'm
what time
not
they
doing
would
it.
leave
I don't
out.
Energy to have it done.
And she's gonna be
I don't have
there,
a skill.
for 2
No,
weeks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't-
Yeah.
I don't- I'm not
And so I-
It seems to change daily,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. And we'll text you on Friday and let you know. I'll see. I think Sissy took Friday off, so we should be able to do that on our way
You
out
wanna
of
see-
town.
you wanna
Just
see a neat
stop by
picture?
and Say
Okay.
hello and see how you're doing.
The picture of me and my dad
Did you
when
wanna go lunch?
I think it's when I graduated high
I think
school.
I need
That's when I graduated high school.
relaxation. Everything's okay though.
Look at that,
Everything's
huh?
okay. It's just lots to do. And I'm excited about
That was
this.
like 1982.
It's gonna be
Good.
relaxation too. I told Susie there's